You know, right this second, something incredible is happening all around us, and I bet you've never even noticed. See, inside your phone, there's a tiny sensor that's tracking your every move. In our hospitals, monitors are translating the very rhythm of human life into these little electrical signals. These sensors, they're literally everywhere, and they're constantly listening, weaving this silent, invisible nervous system into the very fabric of our world.
But here's the question almost nobody thinks to ask. What happens after they listen? I mean, where does all that information go? How do these tiny little pulses of data, each one just a whisper from the real world, somehow become these massive decisions that shape our lives? How does a sensor in a car actually prevent a crash, or a thermometer on your wrist tell a doctor you're getting sick before you even feel it? And the scale of this whole thing, it's just mind-blowing. By 2030, experts think there will be over 25 billion connected devices just like these. And that's not just some big abstract number. Think about it. That's a planetary-scale nervous system, and every single one of those devices is like a tiny pulse, a single heartbeat in this massive global network.
To really get this, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, to the birth of data. So picture a self-driving car on a rainy night, okay? Its sensors are just being bombarded with chaos. You've got raindrops hitting the glass, reflections from streetlights, a cyclist suddenly crossing the street. And in a split second, those sensors take all of that physical mess and translate it into a clean digital signal. That exact moment, that translation from the physical world to the digital one, that's where our story's hero, data, is born.
But here's the catch. In this raw, newborn state, data is, well, it's a mess. It's chaotic and pretty much useless. It's just noise. So before it can become valuable, it has to go on this epic journey, a kind of great transformation from meaningless noise into a clear, powerful signal.
And that journey happens in what tech folks call the data pipeline. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. First, the data gets collected right at the source, what they call the edge, which just means on the device itself, like the sensor in your car. Then it gets transformed. It's cleaned up, standardized, so it all speaks the same language. Next, it's enriched. Basically, context is added, so it actually means something. And finally, all this refined, shiny new data is stored in this vast digital reservoir called a data lake, where information from countless sources gets pooled together, all ready to be used.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is to imagine an oil refinery, right? Crude oil is totally useless when it first comes out of the ground. It has to be refined to become gasoline or jet fuel. Well, data is exactly the same. In its raw form, it's just a bunch of potential. It has to be processed and refined before it has any real power. And this brings us to the most incredible part of data's journey. This is the moment when all that clean, refined data awakens. It's the moment it actually becomes intelligent.
This awakening happens through a process called machine learning. So let's take a factory. Over years, its sensors collect data on all the machines, and, a tiny percentage of them fail. A machine learning algorithm can sift through millions and millions of those data points and find these super subtle hidden patterns that predict when a machine is about to fail. Patterns a human engineer would never, ever be able to spot. It's literally learning from the past to predict the future.
And it turns out, data can learn in a few different ways. You've got supervised learning. Think of a spam filter that's been trained on millions of emails that were already labeled spam. Then there's unsupervised learning, which is all about finding hidden patterns in chaos, like how a retailer might discover completely new types of customers they never knew they had. And finally, there's reinforcement learning, which learns from pure trial and error. That's how an AI can master a game like chess. And believe me, this isn't just some academic exercise. This is literally a matter of life and death. In hospitals, AI systems that are trained on patient data can predict sepsis, a deadly infection, hours before a doctor might even see the signs. And the impact is just staggering. Studies have shown these systems can reduce sepsis mortality by 8 to 12%. That's not just a statistic, that's thousands of lives saved, all because data learned how to see the future. But with this incredible life-saving intelligence comes immense power. And that power, well, it's a double-edged sword. It's creating some profound and often deeply troubling consequences for all of us. See, the moment data is used to make a real-world decision, to approve a loan, to recommend a prison sentence, or to steer a car, power shifts. It moves from a person to an algorithm, and with that shift comes an absolutely enormous responsibility. Let me show you a really stark example.
A major investigation looked into a criminal justice algorithm called Compass, and what it found was disturbing. The algorithm was almost twice as likely to falsely label black defendants as future criminals compared to white defendants. The numbers here on this chart tell the whole story. A 45% false positive rate for black defendants compared to just 23% for white defendants.
And here's the really insidious part. The algorithm wasn't programmed by some racist to be biased. Not at all. It was simply trained on historical arrest data, which, of course, reflects generations of human bias in policing. The machine just learned our society's existing biases and then amplified them, turning them into cold mathematical fact.
And this kind of danger exists in a lot of other places too. Just think about social media. An algorithm's only goal might be something simple, like keep people watching. Well, it quickly learns that extreme, divisive content is fantastic for engagement. And what's the unintended result? It can literally create pathways to radicalization, not out of any evil intent, but just from trying to hit a target.
So, this is where the story brings us. To us. The future of this planetary nervous system isn't some technical outcome that's already set in stone. No, it's a series of crucial human choices, choices that we all have a stake in making.
We have to start asking some really tough questions. Who owns all this data? Who's really benefiting from these systems? How do we make sure they're governed fairly? And maybe most importantly, how do we make sure that we, as humans, stay in control and not the algorithms? These aren't just tech questions anymore. They're moral and political questions about the kind of world we actually want to build.
Because the data nervous system isn't coming, it's already here. It is sensing our world, and it's sensing us. We can't uninvent it, but we can shape it. The technology itself is neutral. Its story, whether it becomes a tool for liberation or for control, is still being written, and we are the ones holding the pen.